it's an interesting one with passwords because we've got to go back to understand really what a password was there for in the first place. So it was the only way a computer could recognise a person, because they're not quite good at recognising you back then, your voice or how you looked and how you behaved. Obviously that's changed a little bit these days, but the password was always seen as something that could quickly identify a person. It was also seen as something which was quite inexpensive to implement. But people didn't realise that inexpensive to implement didn't exactly mean inexpensive to run. So, there's a lot of conversations we have with customers which, really falls back on how much is a password costing you? How many of your, highly paid executives, when we're on the road, are spending their time waiting for a password reset? How long is it taking, an organisation or a help desk's organisation, to reset a password, or the help desk themselves to reset the password? So when you start building this up, especially when you've got a significant amount of users, you can actually see that the costs are quite staggering. But people still want to try and use passwords because it's supposedly easy. What a lot of organisations try to do is to try and build on factors on the passwords. It's fine. It provides a level of security. So if someone does steal a password, they need something else, and that's the whole sort of multi-factor authentication premise. But as we say, people don't want to use passwords. They're now, we've got hundreds of different systems. Some of them have got different passwords, so it gets really, really complicated. And people start writing stuff down and sharing them, and it all gets quite untidy. The way we've got to look at passwords is, how do I provide something that is personal to that user, can't be copied, can't be taken, and becomes basically some sort of immutable identity. And the way we've done that is, we've looked at it on a sort of multi-layer approach. If I can provide something to a system that identifies me and the computer understands it, that's fantastic. But it goes a little bit deeper into that. How do I ensure that piece, that attribute I send to a computer system is properly secure? How do I prevent people trying to access it? How do I prevent things and viruses and stuff trying to penetrate it? And this goes back to basically how we design, our technology. We use the hardware-based security within the device. We put, an immutable credential in there, which is not really in human readable format. It's something that can't be shared. It has protection from external threats. It can detect what's happening to it, but it can also be provided to a computer system to allow that simple sign-on without really the user actually knowing too much about what's happening. If I described a logon process with IDEN Protect, it would be very much a case of I enter an email address, I press next, something happens on my mobile device, I interact with it, either with a biometric or a PIN or a combination of both, and then I get access. And I can access lots and lots of different systems that I need access to. And that's how we've provided simplicity, but also removed any sort of threats and risks associated with passwords and sharing passwords and losing passwords. If you log on to a web portal, and I'm sure there's been plenty of publications made in the last few months about people hacking into websites and taking lots of credentials and stuff. If you're an attacker and you're faced with just a username and no password, what's your next step? So this is how, what we've thought about developing more and having that defence in depth and removing some of that attack surface makes, our solution quite popular within the heavily regulated organisations.